Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing...
Derek, please.
You understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus
You
talking.
hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a life...
Per the State versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
What up, everybody? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast, doing my top 10 releases from Blumhouse. Yeah, so as I stated when I was advertising, I was going to do this little segment. I'm not a huge fan of Blumhouse in general. I find a lot of the stuff they do pretty mediocre to bad. Blumhouse, I give them credit for wanting to put out horror films and concentrate on the horror genre, which is admirable. I think that their execution is very subpar most of the time. But perusing the list of releases they have, which many of them I still haven't seen, I really have no interest in seeing. But I did find like 10 that I thought were worthy enough that I thought we should talk about them a little bit. This is the same company that brings you like remakes like Fantasy Island, Martyrs, Amityville, Black Christmas, Firestarter, and of course the Halloween trilogy. They are now doing, of course, The Exorcist Believer, which last I looked is getting crucified, no pun intended, by Rotten Tomatoes and critics. They're going to be doing Arachnophobia, which, that's probably a film that could use a little bit of an update, but is Blumhouse really the company you want doing that update, right? And then there's a film that came out maybe just a couple of years ago that Nick and I really liked called Speak No Evil. And it's not a film that many people talk about, but it's really, really good. It's very dark, especially at the end. And guess who's remaking it 2 years later? I don't understand. Like, it's one thing to go back to an older film from the 70s, 80s, or 90s, or even further back, and try to reboot it and remake it. But you're taking something that was made just 2 years ago and done very well. It's funny when we talk about YouTube and personalities on the web that, kind of steal thunder by reacting to content and not transforming it or whatever. But, we don't give them much grief to companies like Blumhouse for basically riding the coattails of a movie that's just been out a couple of years. Like, it's really fucking stupid. I don't understand the logic here. First, I'm going to give you some films that I feel like are not really worth your time. I think they're overrated. It's all subjective. I get it. It's all opinion. So this is coming from me, just my opinion, my viewpoints. But films that I feel like are pretty overrated from Blumhouse and really not worth the time to watch. The Black Phone is vastly overrated. It's unoriginal. Halloween, the trilogy that just came out is garbage to me. I don't like it at all. Insidious, maybe the first one, maybe the second one has some moments in them, but the series itself is not that great. Green Inferno, look, I love Eli Roth. I do. I love his passion for horror. There's actually some pretty grotesque things going on in Green Inferno, but let's face it, it's a direct ripoff of Cannibal Holocaust. So I mean, do something different. Be more creative. The Visit, Sweetheart, which I think went straight to Netflix initially, and then Split, which is like the middle sequel to Shyamalan's trilogy of films. So those ones I feel like just are very, very meh, not that great. Now I do have some honorable mentions, mainly because I feel like they kind of brought something new to the table. Doesn't necessarily mean they're great films. Like I have a lot of problems with them. But overall, like they were a little bit more original and presentation. So that would include Totally Killer, which just came out with Shipka in it. It was pretty good for what it was. Rob Zombie's Lords of Salem. I love the premise, love the vibe. Just I wish they would. The ending is actually very good, but just some of the other things I wish Zombie would have gone harder in it, like darker and more brutal in it, like he did with 31. I wish he would have got pretty crazy with it, but he kind of like scaled it back. Megan. So as much as we like to bust on the memes about the doll dancing around and doing its groovy dance or whatever, it's actually a pretty decent take on the whole like killer robot, droid, doll, whatever. I know that when they redid Child's Play, that one's getting brutalized by Rotten Tomatoes, but whereas Megan actually got a lot of positive reviews, both critic wise and audience wise. And I think Neko wasn't as crazy about it. I mean, I didn't think it was the greatest film ever, but I thought it was entertaining enough for a Blumhouse film to get at least a little bit of kudos there. And then probably the most notable in terms of like plot design, execution, and just entertainment wise with the twist and everything else is Get Out. Like that's a decent film that has like a lot of cool things going on in it. I mean, there's some issues where I think sometimes the agenda with Jordan Peele, it just gets kind of overtakes his filmmaking. So that probably is one reason why it wouldn't be in my top 10 as far as films. Like whenever you have like an agenda over entertainment purposes, I kind of get annoyed by that. It's just a personal take. But we can start getting into our top 10 here. And now I'm not going to worry about going through directors or actors because, I mean, by now people should know kind of like who's in them and whatever. But I will give you a bit of a plot synopsis for each film. And at number 10, it's a film that was very controversial when it came out, especially politically. It's a film from 2020 called The Hunt. And it's kind of a cross between Hunger Games, Hard Target, and Surviving the Game. And for whatever reason, it was very politicized when it came out. It was like just criticized, like, ooh, it's great that they're killing conservatives or something. And to be honest, like when I watched it, I didn't find there was that much of it in there. Like there was a little bit, obviously, but as far as like the apparent agenda, I didn't really find it too much. I was really entertained by this film. It was really well acted. The plot is simply 12 strangers wake up in a clearing. They don't know where they are and how they got there. They don't know they've been chosen for a specific purpose, the hunt. So basically, these 12 individuals are being hunted by people because of the political affiliation that they have, and like whether they're a blogger or TV analyst or whatever. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that's basically where that's going. And it's just pretty well acted. It's a lot of fun. Personally, I kind of like it better than Hunger Games. It's just because I know Hunger Games is more designed for the tweens and stuff like that. So this is a more mature approach to it. something like that without the actual game, for society thing. It's just a personal thing between people that want to kill these people. But it was entertaining enough, and if we're talking Blumhouse, it's better than most of the stuff that's out there. Number 9 was interesting because this is a film back in 2014 that caught Nico and I off guard. We watched it on a whim and was quite surprised at how much we enjoyed it. And uh, I think a lot of people at the time kind of got into it too. Like it kind of like created a little bit of a stir. Not so much because it was like movie of the year, but just because it just came out of nowhere. And so that would be Creep. And this is basically a young videographer answers an online ad for a one-day job in a remote town to record the last messages of a dying man. When he notices the man's odd behavior, he starts to question his intentions. And so basically, the man who's supposedly dying is actually kind of turning the tables on this videographer guy to the point that he terrorizes him. And there's just a funny scene that Nick and I laugh at all the time in it where our main antagonist is like got his like little wolf mask on. He's at the top of the stairs, and he just without saying a word, just kind of like does a little dance, like for whatever reason, just to act like a weirdo. But the movie is very entertaining for what it is, and definitely deserves a top 10 mention. Number 8, personally, out of the series, Election Year is my favorite one of them all. But I stuck with the originals if I did the series at all in this top 10 ranking. So it would be 2013's The Purge. And I love the concept immediately when it came out. I didn't go out and see it right away. I just, I saw it a little bit later. Actually, I saw probably Election Year first and then worked my way back. And then I recently saw like the last one. I think I've only missed like one of them that I haven't seen. But basically, the plot is in this film a wealthy family is held hostage for harboring the target of a murderous syndicate during the Purge, a 12-hour period in which any and all crime is legal. And so each movie deals with that. It's a societal thing. For 12 hours, you can commit murder, you can rob, you can rape, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But at the same time, there are people that fight back, and we find that often within these films. That's what happens. But it is kind of funny in some of them where the more high class societal people think that, oh, we're just going to let the riffraff do all their shit. But then some of them get involved, go out there and kill because they think it's great, an adrenaline rush, but then it kind of backfires sometimes. So the series itself is pretty interesting, and I like the concept behind it. Number 7 is 2007. This also turned into a series, which honestly, I didn't really care much for it. I do appreciate the first one for what it was doing, and I a lot of times I feel like the first one should have just been a left alone standalone film. I thought it would have more of a cult like status if it just been its own thing. But since they had gone and done a whole like series on it, I think it kind of cheapens it a little bit. And that is 2007's Paranormal Activity. It's a whole cam thing and stuff like that, dealing with the entity in the house. And of course, everyone knows the famous ending. I think there's alternate endings as well, but it's a pretty decent film. It's definitely something that will move you and creep you out and shake you up a little bit. But since then, of course, they've tied in to the girls and it's all connected like most series are. But I think it would have been better just a standalone film. I think it would have worked out much better in the long run for it. Number 6 is 2012's Sinister. And Neko and I both love this and the second one. Sequel is very good. Basically, it's a controversial true crime writer finds a box of Super 8 home movies in his new home, revealing that the murder case he is currently researching could be the work of an unknown serial killer whose legacy dates back to the 1960s. Now, the interesting thing is you see the face here on the wall. One thing I kept telling Neko when we were watching for the first time was the killer with whatever mask he's wearing remind me a little bit of the musician Take, who does black metal. And so we just, Neko and I, we just basically nicknamed him Mr. Boogity. And they're good films. They're gory. They're dark. They don't always end on light notes. So that's always kind of a good shocking twist when you got a film where you're expecting something happy to happen at the end and it doesn't. So that's it's definitely worthwhile to be in the top 10 as well. Number 5. Now this film is a remake, a reboot, I should say. It is from 2020, The Invisible Man. When I heard about this, I had a dreadful feeling. I did not really want it. Not that anybody cares, but I just didn't really. I hated the fact that these companies out there in the last 10 years have done nothing but reboots and remakes. Blumhouse is not the only guilty party. And the problem is, I understand that Hollywood is kind of struggling and theaters are struggling a bit because COVID hit them hard and all this other stuff. But the reality is, you're cheapening and treating people as if they're dumb. Like we're somehow gonna just give in to all these remakes. Like the younger generation probably doesn't know any better, so they'll see something like Black Christmas and they, oh wow, it's a new movie, and they don't know that it's been done twice before. And actually, 2006 I think is much better than the newest one. So yeah, so this is an Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss, who starred in Mad Men as well as another series that I can't call time, but it's pretty popular. But what I like about this film is its originality. So when you go and make a remake, sometimes you can change something so much that it's unrecognizable, and that's a bad thing. This one doesn't totally do that, even though I think that the plot line story of her and her husband is a bit kind of like an agenda driven thing because of the time that we're dealing with right now with Me Too and all that. It still works. So basically what makes this such a great film is that, one, it's very tensive. There's a lot of tension in it. The way that our antagonist goes about being invisible is very clever. Very clever. Whether or not it's plausible doesn't matter. Very clever. There's even a twist in it towards the end. And without a doubt, that the best scene and probably the best scene that most people will talk about is the dinner scene between Elizabeth Moss' character and I think her sister. And she's trying to explain what's going on. I'm not going to give it away because I think people need to see that for themselves. But it caught me off guard, and that's really kind of like I saw. This is the thing, I saw that scene by itself on it, like I was like doing taking my car in to get it worked on or something, and they had it on, and that scene sold me on watching the movie. That scene alone, like it was so off the cuff and awesome that I said, "Oh, I got to see this shit," and so I did. And I think it's one of the better ones out there that Blumhouse has done for sure. Number 4. Now, Shyamalan has always been like hit or miss with me. Now, Unbreakable is really great, and that was one of the earliest films. That's the first one of the series, because Split was the second one, which I didn't think was very good. It's not McAvoy's fault because I think he did a good job in the role. I just didn't like the movie. It just didn't do much for me, and I think part of it is Shyamalan is at his best when he's doing things and twisting them in a way that you're not expecting. That's why Sixth Sense, The Village, and etc. Signs, they work so well when you don't see it coming. Split was so like right in your face and straight that it's a regular movie. Like I know it's tough as a director to kind of do films and keep people guessing and be that creative. But Shyamalan's a very talented director, so like he's still able to do it occasionally. Now, 2019's Glass got back to that fun. Now it's not as crazy as Unbreakable or Sixth Sense and all that, but you have both McAvoy, Bruce Willis back in there, Samuel L. Jackson. So we have this trio, and it all comes together in this film. And so basically, plot line is security guard David Dunn uses his supernatural abilities to track Kevin Window Crumb. I believe that's McAvoy's character, a disturbed man who has 24 personalities. And so obviously you would have to watch the entire series to understand what Glass is about. So obviously if you haven't seen any of them, watch Unbreakable and Split first, because just watch them in and out order and then watch Glass. But Glass to me was great. Neko and I came out of there really loving that film compared to at least Split and some of the other stuff that he's done later day. Great cast, obviously, and then there was some little twister at the end, but I do really enjoy this film a lot from Blumhouse. All right, so number 3, this one I just watched on a whim, didn't know anything about it, didn't know who made it. I think I was looking around online I did like a Google search for horror films that are underrated, and people mentioned that this one, 2012's The Bay, needed to be looked at. And so I was like, okay. So basically, the plot line is chaos breaks out in a small Maryland town after an ecological disaster occurs. Now, the cool thing is Maryland. That's where I live. So the other thing is this deals with like basically gigantic isopods. Now, I can't give away more than that, but it's creepy and crawly, and it just has like a real good sense of dread. Like it's one of those movies that you wouldn't expect to be that good, because I don't think it was released in theaters. I think this was a direct to video type thing. I say video, but direct to streaming. I don't recall it being in the theaters. If it was, maybe it was, but definitely underrated. It's probably one of the better films from Blumhouse you'll find out there as far as horror is concerned. Number 2, we have, and this one actually is thankful for Samurai Guy, because he's the one that actually recommended it way back when in 2018, and that is Upgrade. Now, this isn't your true version of horror here. Set in the near future, technology controls nearly all aspects of life, but when the world of Gray, a self-labeled technophobe, is turned upside down, his only hope for revenge is an experimental computer chip implant. And so this has a great plot. It's a great action, and it's not exactly what you think would be happening or you expect in this film. So definitely a lot of fun. It's not horror, but it is like action horror. It's got a little bit of horror elements, just not much. But it's more along the lines of action thriller and just great revenge and stuff like that. So very enjoyable film. I highly recommend it for sure. Now, the number 1, for those that follow anything that we do on this channel, if you saw my top 50 films of the 21st century episodes, you would know in the top 10, this film appeared in there. And I did not know it was Blumhouse. I really didn't. And to be fair, it's not a horror film. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, in some ways, you can sit there and say, dude, J.K. Simmons is very fucking horrifying, right? He's very horrifying in this film. But it's not a horror film. And it's basically 2014's Whiplash. And, basically the premise is a promising young drummer enrolls at a cutthroat music conservatory where his dreams of greatness are mentored by an instructor who will stop at nothing to realize the student's potential. And basically Simmons plays that instructor who is like a hard ass. He'll yell at you, he will push you, and he will make you cry in some cases with some of these people. And he's a no-nonsense guy, but there's like this really big tensive battle between Simmons' character and the drummer. And I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he's gotten pretty big since in fact he starred in Ready Player One. But the tension between those two throughout the entire film is amazing. And you wouldn't think just something like, as far as a design of plot, be so entertaining, but the two of them just dominate the screen. It's very good. Neko and I have followed J.K. Simmons for a very long time. He was mainly when he was on the show The Closer way back when, just doing a regular cop role. So the fact that he's, he does some of these, I think it's Allstate commercials, is it, that he does now or something? But either way, like, he's really coming to his own as an actor, even after all this time, and he's phenomenal in this film. It's definitely one of the best you'll see in the 21st century, without a doubt. Highly, highly recommended. If I could literally just sit here and say, toss out the other 9 and just go with Whiplash because it's worthy of by itself, I would say do that. Some people will disagree with my list. I get it. That's fine. I don't really find a lot of stuff that's out there from Blumhouse to be very entertaining, at least to the point that I really like it. I remember going into Halloween Kills and saying, okay, well, this is a lot of fun, but it's not a great movie. Like, it's kind of dumb and dismal. So, and then I didn't even like the first Halloween or the last one, which, is just trash to me. Like, I don't like any of them. So either way you look at it, that's my top 10 list that Blumhouse has to offer. That's really the best of the best that I can give you in terms of what Blumhouse really has to offer. Now, I haven't seen every single film. There's some in there I've seen that I just didn't even care about to mention because they're just that bad. But there's just other stuff in there that may be good. Even if you think I should check out something that's along this kind of list, then let me know, because like maybe there's something out there that I've missed that might be worthy to be in here. But yeah, that's my top 10 list for Blumhouse, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you all for checking out this video. Feel free to give me your own top 10 if you are a Blumhouse fan, or if you're not, if you think they put out some good films, let me know what you think. I know that Mr. Lambert, who I earlier did the Cinematic Synergy with, he not a huge fan of Blumhouse much either, but I'm sure he might look at this and say, oh yeah, I did kind of enjoy that, But please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It all helps, man. I really appreciate the support. And we'll see you next time, man, here on the Metal Time Radio Podcast.
You see me before you die.